All right, so I can officially welcome you to June 29th. Ask Me Anything Live. How can I help you guys? And you're welcome to open up the chat or just unmute, whatever works for you.
Hi, Heather. It's Melissa. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I don't know why my video isn't working. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Let me see. It's not working. Thanks for doing this call. I found you on Lewis Howe's Inner Circle.
Oh, awesome.
And so
Great.
I've signed up for your boot camp and your information. I'm just starting to get an online community, coaching community together.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to start my LLC, also to have it as something I could use also for consulting contracts. So I guess my question to you is, as I get started, if I think I'm going to move from where I currently live, what kind of advice would you have as far as where I would start my LLC? Because I'm not sure if I'm going to stay where I am, or I might move to another state, and I'm just not sure at this point, whether I'll be staying put or moving. So I don't want to have my LLC established in one state and then move to another. And I
Right.
was just kind of confused how that works when it's an online business and you're going to have clients from around the world potentially.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's a great question. So, there are definitely states that are set up for out-of-state LLC formation, right? So Wyoming is popular, Nevada has been historically popular. A lot of people set up in Delaware, although that's become less ideal unless you're somebody that's like really creating a large corporation and you're going to get funding and go public and all of that. I mean, there's still reasons that people might set up there, but there are other states that have also created favorable rules for small businesses. And so, the question, you still have to have a nexus to the state, meaning that you generally have to have a registered agent there, bank accounts there, a mailing address, office space. Like, you still have to have a connection that shows, why you have set up business in that state. But if you're truly location independent, right, the struggle that most people have is that while they may do some component of online business, they also have some component of serving their local market. And that generally creates a nexus to their own home state. Plus, if that's the state where they're paying, income tax or filing their personal taxes, some people find that they go to the effort of creating an out-of-state business, and then they end up being required to basically create a foreign corporation of that same business in their home state. So it's, it's definitely a case by case analysis. I mean, if you don't know where you're moving yet and you really truly expect to be location independent, and, I'd probably look at Wyoming.
Okay.
Without knowing all of the details of your circumstance, it is a popular state. I've got clients around the world who are global. They want a US presence. They don't live here, but they have Wyoming LLCs. So Wyoming is one of the states that definitely has favorable rules for small business from the standpoint of like identity protection and not turning over all of your personal records. So that makes it fairly favorable for some people.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I wouldn't have thought of Wyoming. I've heard Delaware. People mention Delaware.
Yeah, and you can do some research online. You can kind of learn a bit by just researching the states that are favorable for business formation, especially out of state formation, and to see kind of what some of the differences are. But yeah, you might investigate that option.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a lot of help.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck and congratulations.
Thank you. I was laid off from the day job, and so, but now is the time, right? A
That's
lot of us are
right. A lot
thinking
of
that.
people in the same boat. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, even if I do, more than likely I'll get a full-time job at least for a while. I would like to just at least start my community and my business as my side hustle, but I just don't know if I'm going to be staying put or moving.
Yeah,
So
I hear you.
it's just a little difficult right now to just get up and running.
Yeah. Well, good luck. That's a
Thank you.
fun journey. Yes, it's very exciting. Welcome to Donna. I see we've still got Melissa on the line. Nikki, feel free to pop back into the chat or let me know if you've got any additional questions. But Melissa or Donna, how can I help? And feel free to unmute if you're in a place where you can do that. Otherwise, or sorry, what that was, Melissa. Was I just speaking to Melissa?
Yes, that was Melissa.
Oh, okay. Sorry. For some reason, Nikki's image was coming up. So I think the Zoom thought it was Nikki.
It's Nikki now. I can.
Nikki's now. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nikki or Donna. Sorry about that, Melissa. Nikki
Maybe
or
that's
Donna.
why.
How can I help?
My image probably came up because I had unmuted myself.
Got
so
it.
like background noise of the cars driving by is what you heard and what Zoom
Okay.
picked up on. So yeah, thank you for doing this. I know we spoke a couple months ago over the phone as our free, one of your free offerings to just basically ask you anything. And I wanted to revisit a couple of things of what we were talking about. So I have a doctorate in physical therapy, and my in-person California business is providing physical therapy. And my question is that I'm creating this online education piece, but which also what I've been experimenting with during quarantine is like virtual healing sessions that are not really considered telehealth or like physical therapy proper, but more of this esoteric, energy-based woo-woo type of practice. And my question is, I'm going to take your advice that you said to create an LLC that is more for the online education piece to completely separate the two. But if I were to offer some sort of group energetic healing sessions or some sort of remote thing, should that be like part of the Dr. Nikki physical therapy piece? It should be part of the online so completely keep it totally
completely
separate.
different, because you're going to get into the muddy water of like, if you're offering that out of your physical therapy business, regardless of what you're doing, if people perceive you in that medical capacity, you're bringing some risk in as far as crossing those lines around licensing and telehealth and interstate issues that you just don't want to get into.
Okay. Then okay. I guess, so with the new LLC, it could still be my name, right? Like Dr. Nikki LLC or something like that. Or should I completely, because I don't want to, part of me is scared of not having the Dr. Nikki in front of me because it gives me a little bit of clout in the world that they think like, okay, she knows what she's talking about because I have that prefix. So I think I'm scared to let that go, as it gives me a little bit of a leg up, like, okay, she's not just some, crystal.
I don't think you have to let it go, but I wouldn't base your branding around it. I wouldn't let it go, because that's who you are, and you can come to the table and say, look, I am a doctor, this is what I do, totally separate business, I have this background, but here in this business, this is what I'm offering, this is what I'm doing, not in my capacity as a doctor.
Okay, so I can still refer to myself as Dr. Nikki within that business, but it's not, okay.
But you're not basing your branding around it, so people don't think they're engaging with you in your capacity as a doctor.
I see. Perfect. That is the clarity I needed. Thank you so much, Heather.
You're
rock.
welcome. You're so welcome. All right, good questions. Donna, how can I help? Oh, it says doesn't have micro video. I'm just interested in listening to you because we think a lot alike. Oh, good. You're an attorney as well, licensed in 3 states. Teach alternative dispute resolution. Awesome. And do coaching and training in that area. Perfect. Well, welcome. Great to be connected. Where are you based on? I'm curious where you're licensed, if you can chat. And if you have a smartphone, you can also join via smartphone if you've got the same link. That sometimes allows people to get on video and chat if your computer isn't working. I know in our house, my son, who we regularly have to do Zoom with for ABA, for some reason the other day, the video just stopped on the computer, so he couldn't connect via video, which was rough. California, Washington, and Texas. Awesome. And are you living then in one of those states? Are you located somewhere where you're licensed, or I'm just curious where you're at? Because, and I'm also curious who you're teaching your dispute resolution to. That's also an area that I love. How are you teaching it, and who's your audience? Would love to know in case I can send referrals your way. Live in Washington. Okay. Although back and forth as you teach and live part-time in California. Got it. Excellent. Well, that sounds busy. Doing the back and forth. That sounds like a lot, but congrats. Also fun. Okay, perfect. Would love to connect with you. Feel free to drop me an email. In fact, well, you're probably already on my email. Obviously, you can just reply to that same one, or I'll pop it in here. Info@legalwebsitewarrior.com, and then my official, for my legal practice email is heather@piercelawservices.com. So I'll give you both of those. But yeah, feel free to drop me an email. Would be happy to connect. Happy to have you join today. Any other questions, Nikki or Melissa, while you guys are on the line? Happy to help if I can. Otherwise, I generally just stay on these calls for as long as folks have questions, and then I get busy doing my work.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
This is Nikki. In regards to starting the LLC or creating it, that is something that I can do on my own, right?
Mhm.
Or do I need to hire someone like you to create it for me I don't know, is there a legal?
Yeah, let's talk about the different steps. People have different comfort levels with this, so there is not really a one size fits all. Some people, I have clients that are really like do it yourself type folks, and they're like, hey, can you just provide me some coaching on how this works through a state system? Generally, it looks very similar state to state, so I coach people around how to walk through those steps themselves. The parts that I would want you to have some, legal help with, and we can talk about it now versus later. So in California, Nikki, where are you based? Sorry.
I'm in California.
You're
Yeah,
in
same thing.
California. You did say that. Okay. So in California, you've got this extra step where you pay basically a licensing fee to the tax and licensing board. It's for an LLC, it's $800 a year. I think that covers you up to about $200,000 in income. You'd have additional fees if you went beyond that. But there are a few extra steps. California, is a little more intense than some other states, but you can do it. And I've walked clients through it that have created their own LLCs. You also, though, the final piece of it is getting an operating agreement in place for your LLC. And a lot of people, like, depending on what they use, if they try to do it themselves online or use LegalZoom or whatever, they can get partway through the process and then not do the final steps, which is to get your final documentation in place, make sure that you've got your corporate governance set up and rolling the right way. But your operating agreement is key. It's not required that you disclose that anywhere. So for example, it's not a document that you file, like you file your articles of incorporation or your articles of organization. They're called different things in different states, but you do want to have your operating agreement in your own files, dated and signed, because if you were to ever have a business audit or be engaged in litigation or have something go wrong, you'd want to show that you really fully treated your business like a business and you completed that step. And people ask, well, do I need an attorney for that? Can I use an online template for an LLC operating agreement? There's a few, it depends, right? Some LLC operating agreements are better than others at delineating what happens. For example, if a creditor comes, pursuing your assets, etc. Overall, I would say that if you're on a budget and you absolutely can't hire an attorney to create that operating agreement for you, like I sell a standard operating agreement out of my online store. For most people, it's adequate. But if you were to ever add somebody to the LLC, if you were to bring in another partner in an LLC model, it's called a member, you would really need to have that operating agreement revised, because you would need something that accounts for two individuals in the business and what a decision-making process looks like, what would happen in the event of, something causing a dissolution of the LLC, how you would handle that, etc. So if you're a single member LLC owner, right, you can revise your operating agreement at any time yourself. If you're going into a two-member or multi-member LLC situation, you would definitely need a revised version of that operating agreement. So that's what I let people know, is that, if you're starting from a strict budget, probably you can get by with certain standard documents. But if you are creating an LLC that has multiple members, I'd really want you to have legal help around that.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it would just be me. I don't foresee partnering with anybody. Um,
And
correct?
yeah, a lot of my clients are in that same boat, but I just give them the caveat that if you were to evolve your business or add some additional members, you maybe should have that looked at and really tailored by an attorney.
Okay. So in summary, it's a process that I could start myself, like on LegalZoom or something, because unfortunately I am a little budget conscious at the moment as I'm starting this whole thing.
Yes, and I will say, be very careful because LegalZoom has a way of getting its fees. I have seen, and hi, Erin, I want to acknowledge that you're here. Yes, you're next in line for a question. I'm happy to help you. I have seen, Nikki, people go through the LegalZoom process and pay more on LegalZoom than they would have paid for an attorney to do it. So let's be really clear that those online systems, they have a way of getting their fees, and generally it's because they throw everything in the basket and people are not educated consumers. They don't know what they need and they get it all. So,
that
you
makes
know, LegalZoom may or may not be a great way to start, but there are certainly ways to do it yourself that provide savings.
All right. I appreciate that. Thanks again, Heather.
Yes, you're welcome. Good luck. Erin, what's your question? Feel free to unmute or go live. Hi there.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Good, nice to meet you. Hey, I think I found you through B School. Is that right?
Oh, okay.
Are you?
Probably. I get a lot of referrals through B School.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if you did it or yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'd love to ask you a question today. I've
Yes.
been seeing your emails pop up, and I thought, oh, I'll just hop on and ask.
Good. Well, happy to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Where are you based?
I'm up in Seattle.
Seattle. Okay.
Yep.
Well,
How about you?
I'm in Northern California.
Okay.
So
We got a
West
lot of
Coast,
California
West
folks
Coast
on. I know.
represent.
Shout out to all the Californians. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm an online style coach, and I developed this program. It's called Create Your $1 Million Look, and it's like the 7-step method. And I've just collaborated with a couple partners and launched an online course that's kind of a pivot for our industry, sort of how to take their consulting online, and I've already kind of developed this really great method that I've been running for a couple years. So we've got a bunch of industry people in our online course, and they're very interested in my method. So my next steps, and I don't even know where to begin, so I'm just going to put this question out. Maybe you can point me, because I know that I need to get with an attorney and begin to put some pieces together, but I would like to create a method, certify a method, apprentice people, train them to do my online style coaching method, and kind of create like a whole little world around this method. I don't even know where to begin. I'm starting to look for people that have done similar things, pick their brain, ask them questions, but have you ever helped anyone with that, or could you point me in a direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a couple things to keep in mind, and I'd be curious actually what you've learned by talking to people, because I find that some people get pretty decent advice and some totally don't. The thing about the certification and licensing world is that depending on what's happening, there's a very fine line in many instances between a certification program or a licensing model and a franchise. And people have to be really, really careful. So franchise law, it's basically federally regulated. You don't want to accidentally slip into creating a franchise if you didn't intend to go that route, because it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, and I can't do expensive startup right now. We've got to be sort of scrappy. I mean, there's some resources, but it's got to be somewhat, cost efficient.
Yeah.
And to me, the whole franchise model, it did sound very complicated. So I'm leaning towards, more of a licensing.
Yeah, it's complicated. And I will say that a lot of people in the certification and licensing world have actually accidentally created a franchise, because the 3 elements for creating a franchise is that you are licensing some element of your brand or business system framework, right? You think of all of the fast food restaurants out there, right? There's branding associated with it. There's whole internal systems. You're charging for that, right? So you're receiving payment in return, and you are providing like training, support systems, right? It's more than just handing over a piece of IP and saying, here are the rules around licensing and run with it. You're much more involved in actually how they run the business. So everything from, marketing support, training support, etc. That's a franchise.
Okay.
So a lot of people in the licensing world, certification world, are doing all of those things. And so it's really tricky. I think that there's a whole host of people out there that if regulatory authorities wanted to crack down on who's actually created franchise, like a whole bunch of people would be caught up in that. Mostly they're probably keeping eyeballs on the bigger fish in the ponds, but it is something where I'd want you to have very, very skilled support within your state. I could probably get some referrals for you to help you determine, is it something that you can create a certification program around, right? Or is it a licensing model? And if it's a licensing model, how do you do it in a way that allows you control over your brand assets without getting into trouble? And some people have to let go of one leg of that three-legged stool, right? Obviously, you're not going to let go of payment. The whole point usually is to increase your business revenue, get your IP out there. You're probably not going to let go of the brand asset. Like, you're probably not going to white label this because you're trying to grow your brand. So it may be that you let go of the training.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So it's, anyways, but a lot of people get into this world, and I've seen people that basically put their own terms in place around licensing and certification, and they have no idea what they're doing, and they've actually created a franchise. So just be very, very careful and ask lots of questions. And I'm happy if you want to email me let's see,
I have your email
right there. I put it up there in the chat. If you want to drop me an email, I'm happy to collect some referrals for you, so that you could explore some conversations around that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good luck. That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And Donna, you're in Port Angeles. Awesome. That's not too far from me. Very fun. Any other questions? Erin, anything else from you that I can help with?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that right now.
No worries. You have a minute. Nikki, if you're still on the line, I'm going to grab, just so that you've got it, I'm going to grab the link to my my individual templates in case, for example, you're looking at your operating agreement. I've also gotten, and I just can't remember if it's listed in my online store. For people that want some assistance with, so I've got my LLC formation guide as well. In there, it's on the first line. You might take a look at that, because that often can help people if they're doing a DIY approach, trying to set up an LLC in their own state. They can get this guide, and it will generally walk them through the steps that are applicable. And I've got one for California. So if you check out that link, you'll see that there's both the LLC formation guide and then also a link to a single member LLC operating agreement.
Okay. Heather, this is Melissa.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Erin. We may have cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'll just ask this quickly. Heather, okay. Do you know of coaches who have certified like methods and templates, developed licensing programs? Off the top of your head, do you know like some names or people like, oh yeah, so and so's done that pretty well? Or
well, and I mean, I definitely would, but I can't say that what they like. I wouldn't have a way of looking at the back end of their system and knowing that it's in compliance with anything, right? So even though, I mean, there's tons of coaches and people out there that have certifications, and there's a couple ways to do certifications there. And this is really an area that I want to learn more about myself, because from the language and like documentation agreement standpoint, that's where I do a lot of the work with my clients. But there's also a way that you can get a certification, and I'm actually happy to provide her contact information here as well. Her name is Nancy. She's a friend of mine, and she does strictly like trademark and copyright registrations. So that's federal level work. She's based out of Florida. But I'm actually scheduled to reach out to her to talk about this very topic, licensing and certification, because you can also get a registered trademark on like a certification emblem, right? So you'd actually create like a stamp or an emblem or something that signifies to people, like if they go through the certification process, they're able to display that. But my understanding of it right now, and I could be wrong, but for some reason what sticks in my mind about that is it's actually a certification that's not related. I have a little person sneaking in.
Little people. So cute.
You guys, what did you, which side are you on? Oh, yes, you did.
Can I keep this one and then I can keep that one?
Aiden, sweetie, my mommy's still working. Can you guys go upstairs and play games?
I'll get my presents. It's my birthday tomorrow.
My wild cooped up 7-year-old.
God bless you. That's a challenging age to be doing this, to be doing quarantine at home, isn't it? Oh my gosh.
It is, and my
I feel ya. No worries.
yeah, basically I have my 7-year-old keeping eyeballs on my, it's probably vice versa, my 2-year-old keeping eyeballs on my 7-year-old. But yeah, my recollection around that type of certification program is that the certification is actually independent of the brand, meaning it's not a certification that provides brand recognition, right? It's a certification that's like just unique to that program or product, and so it doesn't drive brand visibility.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's one way you can do certification, is like separately through a mark that's not attached to the brand.
Okay, interesting. Separately. Okay.
But I'm happy if you want to drop me an email, Erin. I'm actually intending to learn more about this myself so that I can figure out like what parts can I help with, if it's because I don't do trademark registrations or copyright registrations. Like I send my clients to people who do that. They file those registrations and defend those registrations as their primary area of practice, right? And that's not mine. I coach people on assessing their intellectual property, understanding what they're doing in their business, and then I do a lot of work in the contracts bucket and a lot of coaching across other topics as well. But I help people with the roadmap. I don't file for the registrations. And so I could get you connected to my friend Nancy, who does the registration side, but I'm also happy to loop back around with you once I learn more about, you know, what can be done within the licensing. Woo, sweetie pie, come here. Where did you get that? We're now finding confetti guns. Come here.
Oh, God.
Where? No. Sorry about that really loud noise.
No worries.
You're getting a peek into my reality. What is happening? Aiden is celebrating his birthday, which happens tomorrow, a little early. I can tell this is what is happening right now. Aiden, sweetie. Yeah, I know. You can come visit, but we're not popping that little gun. That's dangerous. I don't know where you guys found that.
Such a cutie. All right. Well, I'll follow up on email with that then.
Totally. I'm happy to loop back around, especially once I learn a little more about how, you know, somebody can approach that licensing or certification method without crossing over.
Yeah.
Aiden, did you get that for her, sweetie pie? Look at me. I need you guys to do a reset. Go upstairs. Mommy will be up in just a few minutes, okay? No. We can't take that little gun. My wild children. So yeah, I'm happy to loop back around on that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're
Heather.
welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Very
All
nice
right,
to
I'll
meet
be in
you.
touch, okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, Erin. Bye-bye. All righty. Anybody else?
Heather, this is Melissa, just really quickly. Does your LLC formation kit, does that discuss DBAs?
So let's talk briefly about DBAs. So DBAs they're also called trade names. Sometimes they're called fictitious trade name, right? It's DBAs are just a way to let your state know that you're doing business as. So DBA is doing business as a certain name, right? It doesn't actually set up a separate business entity. So some people are sole proprietors and have DBAs. Some people have set up LLCs and their LLC also has a DBA, right? So generally what happens is if you're setting up an entity, you go through the registration process with the state, you file articles of organization or incorporation, you get a certificate of formation back, Sometimes states do it online. Sometimes it, comes through the mail, depending on the state. So you get what's called a certificate of formation. And then separate and apart from that, some states have it built into the registration process. When you go to register for your business license, you then at that point list your DBAs, and that's where you would get your DBAs put on file. So for example, some people, especially if you're operating under your own name, you don't have to register, like you wouldn't have to register Melissa Sabatine, however you say your last name, as a DBA, right? The state can already track you under that name because that's your legal name. Whereas if you were to do, and Melissa, remind me what you do.
Well, I'm going to be setting up an online coaching community.
There we go. Online coaching community, right? So if you were to do something where you even had like Melissa as part of it, not your last name and some other thing associated with it, or a totally separate name, and that's also distinct from your LLC. So for example, I have clients that have LLCs that are set up as like 418 LLC or whatever, like it's numbers, it's not, you really can't identify them based on the name of their registered LLC, but their brand name or their trade name, what people know them as for their business, is totally different. You would need to register that DBA, or if you're using several DBAs, separate and apart from your legal entity, so that the state can connect the dots and say, oh yeah, this LLC, or in the case of a sole proprietor, this individual is doing business under these trade names.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Yeah, registering a DBA is usually like $5, $10, $20 a DBA. Like it's basically the processing fee of doing the paperwork. It's really, really minimal. It's totally separate and distinct from actually setting up a formal entity.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any
I'm
other
sorry,
questions?
I have one last question. It's Nikki, and I
Hi,
thank you
Nikki.
for putting those templates up there, because I'm definitely going to look at them and use them. But as I'm setting up the LLC, I know that there has to be obviously a name for the LLC. Is there a way in the process to see if that name has already been taken?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a great thing to do. Generally, whatever state you're setting up your entity in, they will require that you do a business search first as part of it. They often have it built into the registrations. You put in the name that you're looking for, and then it runs it against the database to see, does anybody else exist with that name?
Okay.
Right. And usually if you're creating an LLC or a PLLC or something, you have to have those initials in the name itself, right? So whatever you'd set up, you'd include LLC in the name, and then it would run a search to see, does anybody else have that name?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great questions. Any other questions? Check in comments. All right. If we don't have any other questions, I will sign off. Really great to connect with you today, though. Hope everybody's doing well and staying healthy. You're very welcome, Nikki. And Nikki, if you are interested in like the LLC formation guide, you can also email me directly, because I've got, like I said, I've got a California version, but the California version is not attached to my automated system. That's going to be the general version. So if you're interested in the California version, just email me and I'll give you a separate, just a PayPal link that's associated with my business, and you can pay there, and I'll just manually email you the California form.
Are both of those emails, they both go to you, right? The ones you
That's right. Yeah. And the info at Legal Website Warrior, that's my online coaching business, right? So that's my online information and education business. The Pierce Law Services is separate from what I'm doing here, and that's my, traditional legal practice.
You have a preference which one I use to email you?
Probably the info, because that's all the offers and the work that I do for online entrepreneurs are generally through that business, because it's automated forms, trainings, workshops, etc. So that's probably the best one to use, is the info at.
You got it. Thanks.
Awesome. You're welcome. Great to connect with you. Any other questions? You're welcome, Donna. I look forward to connecting with you. Nikki, good to see you. Melissa, great to connect with you. Thanks for being here, you guys. Be in touch, follow up via email if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I will sign off for the day.
Thanks, Heather. Happy birthday to your little guy. He's really cute.
He's been counting down the days for like 60 days. Mom, what is it?
Oh.
Like 59 days? I know. So he's pretty excited. We'll have fun.
All right, so cute.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good idea.